Long before the Empire's rise, in an age lost to myth and whispered legends, the galaxy was witness to a different, more profound kind of horror. It was a horror born not of political ambition, but of a catastrophic moral failure. It was the story of a Jedi Knight so bright, so gifted, that his fall to the dark side did not just corrupt him. It tore a hole in the very fabric of the Force and brought the galaxy to its knees in a torrent of blood and betrayal. This is not a story of a man who sought to rule. This is the tragic and horrific tale of a man who sought to become a god. This is the story of Exar Kun. To understand the immensity of his fall, we must first understand the height from which he fell. In the golden age of the Old Republic, thousands of years before the Clone Wars, the Jedi Order was at its peak. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant was a beacon of light, its spires reaching for the stars, a testament to an unshakable peace. They were an army of peacekeepers, philosophers, and guardians, their numbers vast, their reputation unassailable. It was an era of stability, but also one of profound dogmatism. For many Jedi, the Force was a serene river, a path to be walked slowly and with patience. To them, the journey was more important than the destination. But to a young, brilliant Jedi named Exar Kun, this was a philosophy for the weak. It was the comfortable lie told by those who feared to run. Exar Kun was by all accounts a prodigy. He was a master swordsman, his movements a blur of precise, controlled energy. He was a scholar of ancient texts, consuming forgotten lore with a hunger that worried his teachers. He was a Force sensitive, whose potential was so vast, it was almost intimidating. He was the kind of student the Jedi Order had always dreamed of, but his brilliance was shadowed by an equally immense arrogance. He was not content to simply walk the path. He believed he could chart a new, more efficient, and more powerful one. He believed the Jedi's traditional methods were limiting, holding back their true potential. In his mind, the Jedi were so concerned with avoiding the dark side that they had blinded themselves to its secrets, and in doing so, had made themselves stagnant. He saw it not as an evil to be shunned, but as a power to be studied, a tool to be understood, and a shortcut to ultimate knowledge. He was not tempted by cruelty. He was seduced by possibility. His philosophy led him into bitter intellectual arguments with his master, Vodo Siosk Baz. Vodo was a wise and patient teacher, a being of immense age and experience who had seen the consequences of such reckless curiosity. He saw the storm gathering in his pupil's heart. He warned Exar Kun of the dangers of his hubris. He spoke of the dark side, not as a tool, but as a sentient corruption, a chain that would forever bind the one who reached for it. But Exar Kun's belief in his own superiority was uncheckable. He believed his will was so strong that he could delve into the dark side's secrets and emerge unscathed, a Jedi who was wiser and more powerful for it. He did not see himself as a potential villain. He saw himself as a visionary, a revolutionary. This was his tragedy in its purest form. His fall was not born of malice, but of intellectual arrogance. He wanted to do good, to elevate the Jedi, to perfect the Order, but he was convinced that the ends justified any means, no matter how forbidden. Close bond with his friend and fellow Jedi, Ulitz Keldroma, only served to highlight their different natures. Where Exar Kun was an intellectual and a lone wolf, a thinker who lived inside his own head, Ulitz was a man of action and passion, a warrior who engaged with the galaxy directly. Their relationship was a mirror, reflecting the two paths a Jedi could take, one to a dangerous and isolated quest for knowledge, the other to a more direct, emotional confrontation with the galaxy's darkness. They were two stars of incredible brightness, one burning with cold, focused intensity, the other with a warm, expansive glow. Neither could foresee how their fates would soon collide and combust. The path of a Jedi is one of self-discovery, but Exar Kun's path was one of self-obsession. He believed he was destined for something greater than a life of quiet servitude. He did not just want to be a master of the Force. He wanted to command it. He wanted to be the most powerful being in the galaxy, not for the sake of ruling, but for the thrill of the power itself, for the sheer ecstasy of knowing no limit. This corrosive ambition gnawed at him, turning his brilliance into a dangerous, insatiable hunger. The Jedi Code became a cage. The teachings of his master became the prattling of an old fool. The galaxy itself seemed to be waiting for him to claim his rightful place. And so, his pride led him to the first great turning point of his life. Against the stern warnings of his master and the quiet doubts of his friend, Exar Kun began his fateful journey to the tomb worlds of the ancient Sith, a quest to uncover the power that the Jedi had shunned. He saw it not as a descent into evil, but as a righteous act of defiance against a complacent order. He believed he was going to master a beast, not become one. He packed his lightsaber, his robes, and his unshakable confidence. He was about to learn in the most horrific way imaginable that you do not use the dark side. The dark side uses you. It finds the crack in your soul, the secret pride you hide even from yourself, and it pours itself in until you are nothing but a vessel for its will. He was walking into a trap he himself had designed. Chapter 2. The Seduction of a Shadow. The journey to Korriban was a descent into a waking nightmare. It was a place where the Force, to a Jedi, felt broken and defiled. The very air was thick with the dust of fallen Sith, a choking miasma of ancient hatred and malevolence. The sky was a perpetual blood-red twilight, casting long, twisted shadows from the monstrous statues that lined the valleys. These were not monuments to heroes, but to tyrants, their faces frozen in expressions of eternal rage and boundless hunger. As Exar Kun's ship landed on the barren crimson surface, he was filled not with dread, but with a thrill of dangerous anticipation. He had arrived at the heart of the darkness, and in his arrogance, he believed he was ready to face it. He felt the oppressive weight of the place, and he mistook it for importance. He felt the cold, and he called it power. Korriban was a world of monuments to ruin. The valleys were vast graveyards, their walls carved with the ghostly reliefs of long-dead Sith. Their monumental tombs, silent and imposing, were monuments to ego and a lust for immortality. With every step, Exar Kun felt the whispers of the past. They were not words he could understand with his ears, but emotions that clawed at his mind, promises of power that resonated with his own hidden desires. A feeling would brush against his consciousness, the ghost of a thought. You are strong. They were weak. They feared you. We do not fear you. We welcome you. These were the echoes of ancient Sith Lords, their spirits haunting their own mausoleums, hungry for a worthy apprentice, a new voice to scream their legacy into the living world. Exar Kun, so confident in his discipline, began to rationalize his every move. He told himself this was just a study. He was an archaeologist of the dark side, carefully cataloging its secrets. The temptation was so subtle. It did not appear as a monstrous voice demanding his soul, but as a reasonable whisper suggesting that he could achieve so much more if he just took a small step, if he just let go of the Jedi's chains. He could do so much good, save so many lives, if only he had the power to do so. The dark side preys on ambition and good intentions, using a Jedi's strengths as a path to their greatest weakness. It praised his intelligence. It validated his frustration. It told him he was right, and all the Jedi who had ever counseled patience were wrong. It was the most seductive lie of all, the lie that he was special, that the rules were for others. His quest led him deep into the most oppressive valley, to the tomb of a long-dead Sith Lord, Freeden Nad. The air here was so thick with malice it was difficult to breathe. The entrance to the tomb was a gaping maw of darkness, and from it poured a sense of immense, patient power. Nad's spirit was a master manipulator, a consciousness that had waited centuries for a vessel worthy of its attention. It recognized the pride and ambition in Exar Kun instantly, a mirror of its own. It saw the perfect student, a mind ripe for the breaking. When Exar Kun, feeling a first genuine tremor of fear, tried to resist, to hold on to his Jedi beliefs, Freedon Nad did not argue. He did not plead. He acted, with a thought that was not a thought, but a command to the very stone of the tomb. He collapsed the entrance. Tons of rock slammed down, crushing Exar Kun, trapping him, burying him alive in a tomb of his own choosing. The horror of that moment was not in the physical pain, though that was immense, but in the finality of the choice. Exar Kun, a Jedi, whose life was defined by control and discipline, was suddenly faced with a chaotic, agonizing end. He did not die in noble combat. He was trapped and helpless, his body broken, his great mind useless against the crushing weight of stone. This was not the death of a hero. It was the death of a fool. And in that moment of absolute helplessness, the whispers became a clear, singular voice. It was the voice of Freedon Nad. It offered a simple choice. Die here in the dark, your potential. Wasted, your name forgotten, or reach out. Take the power that is yours by right. Heal yourself. Live. So he made the choice. In his desperation, his arrogance shattered along with his bones. He unleashed a power he had only glimpsed in theory. He did not ask the Force for healing. He commanded it. He reached into the well of his own anger, his fear of this ignoble death, his rage at being tricked, and he screamed into the darkness. The dark side answered. It was not a gentle flow of energy. It was a torrent, a tsunami of pure, searing power. It ripped through his mind and body, filling him not with peace, but with a raging, all-consuming fire. His bones snapped back into place. His flesh knit itself together. But the cost was absolute. His spirit was now bound to the darkness. Healing was a violation, and he welcomed it. He emerged from the rubble, no longer a Jedi, but a newly forged Sith apprentice. The light within him was not just dimmed, it was extinguished, replaced by a cold, black star. The whispers were no longer a distant echo. They were a roar in his mind, a chorus of dark side spirits celebrating their new champion. The final, terrible transition was complete when he returned to his ship. The pilot, a loyal man who had waited patiently, saw him approach and sighed in relief. He asked if the master was all right. Exar Kun looked at him, this innocent, simple man, and saw nothing but a tool, a test to see if the power was real. He reached out with his mind, not to communicate, but to crush. He took the life of the pilot, an innocent man, just to feel the energy fade, to feel the transfer of vitality. There was no remorse, no hesitation. There was only a cold, clinical satisfaction. The Exar Kun who had left the Jedi Order, the man who believed he could control the darkness, was gone. In his place was a being of pure will and ambition, ready to forge a new path of power and destruction. He was now the apprentice to a dead man, but he was also the master of a terrifying new reality. He had passed his final test. He had killed his past. Now he would go and kill the future. Chapter 3. The Scourge of the Republic, the newly christened Sith apprentice, did not return to the galaxy in a blaze of glory. He returned quietly, like a poison spreading through the roots of a great tree. His true horror began not with open war, but with the insidious corruption of others. The Exar Kun who had left the Jedi was a prodigy of immense power, but the being who returned was something far more dangerous. He was a master of seduction, a charismatic demagogue with a magnetic, terrifying presence. His eyes now held a knowing darkness, a confidence that was both alluring and frightening. He knew the weaknesses of the Jedi. He knew their doubts. He knew their pride. He used this knowledge to prey on them, one by one, like a surgeon removing vital organs before the body even knows it is sick. He sought out those Jedi who, like him, felt confined by the Order's strictures. He found those who were impatient with their masters, those who felt their talents were being wasted, and those who harbored secret ambitions. To them, he did not appear as a monster. He came as a revolutionary, a liberator. He promised them true freedom from the Jedi Code. He offered them the power to finally achieve their full potential, to change the galaxy in ways the complacent Jedi could not. His teachings were a twisted mockery of the Jedi's own. He taught them that true strength came from passion, that fear was a tool to be wielded, that anger was a fuel, and that compassion was a weakness to be purged. He gave them permission to be everything they had been taught to suppress, and one by one, they fell. They became his Brotherhood of the Sith, a cadre of fallen Jedi, their lightsabers now blazing with the crimson fire of their new allegiance. His most profound and tragic corruption came in the form of his alliance with Ulitz Keldroma. Ulitz, once a noble Jedi, a hero of the Republic, had himself fallen to the dark side during a brutal undercover mission that broke his spirit. He had embraced the darkness not for knowledge, but for vengeance, and in doing so, had lost himself to it. He was adrift, a weapon without a hand to wield it, consumed by self-loathing and grief. Exar Kun found Ulitz already broken, a raw and wounded soul. He did not have to tempt him with promises of power. He simply had to offer him a new purpose, a new path forward, a brotherhood to replace the order he had lost. When Ulitz, tormented by guilt and a flicker of his old self, challenged Exar Kun to a duel to resist him, it was a battle not of strength, but of will. The fight was fierce, a clash of two of the greatest Jedi of their generation, now steeped in darkness. But Exar Kun was no longer just a Jedi. He was something more. He easily defeated Ulitz, disarming him, leaving him helpless on the ground. This was the moment. Exar Kun did not deliver a killing blow. He knelt beside his former friend. He placed his hands on Ulitz's head, and with a single horrific application of ancient Sith magic, he reached into Ulitz's mind and shattered his will. He did not persuade him. He rewrote him. He bound Ulitz's spirit completely to the dark side and to his own. From that moment on, they were not just allies, but a unified Sith brotherhood. The two brightest stars were now a binary system of darkness. Ulitz's strategic genius combined with Exar Kun's mystical power made them an unstoppable force. Now, with a small but formidable army of fallen Jedi at their side, the two Sith Lords began their conquest. Exar Kun's true genius was not in battlefield tactics, but in manipulation. He understood that to break the Republic, he first had to break its spirit. He ignited a galactic conflict with a single horrifying action. He orchestrated the brutal murder of the Jedi's most respected and beloved leader. And then, with a subtle twist of the Force, he framed a prominent senator for the crime. This one act created chaos. The Jedi demanded justice. The Senate erupted in paranoia and distrust. This was the opening salvo of the Great Sith War. This conflict was not a battle over territory, but a war of ideology. It pitted a reformed republic and a weakened Jedi Order against a charismatic, terrifying enemy who had already infected the galaxy from within, who knew their secrets and preyed on their doubts as the war raged across star systems. Exar Kun's power grew to an unbelievable scale. He didn't just use the dark side. He became a living embodiment of it. He mastered ancient Sith sorcery, rituals that could corrupt entire star systems with a thought, that could summon legions of dark side specters to fight for him. He crafted a unique double-bladed lightsaber, a weapon of terrifying elegance and deadliness. It was a physical representation of his philosophy, a single entity made of two opposing forces, a dangerous contradiction in motion. He was an unstoppable force of nature, a brilliant military commander, and a master manipulator all at once. The Jedi, fighting a known enemy for the first time in centuries, were completely unprepared for the sheer scale of his malice. They were not fighting soldiers. They were fighting their own fallen brothers and sisters. They were fighting a nightmare made flesh. For the first time, they were not fighting to preserve peace. They were fighting for their very survival against a man who was once their own. Chapter 4: The Price of Hubris, Ruin, and Remembrance. The Great Sith War raged for years, a long, painful scar across the galaxy. But no ultimate victory came for the Sith. Exar Kun was a brilliant tactician, but his hubris was his ultimate downfall. He believed his power made him invincible. He underestimated the resilience of the Republic. He underestimated the enduring strength of the Jedi, even in their darkest hour. Most crucially, he underestimated the capacity for redemption, even in those he had broken. Ulit's Keldroma, after a shattering personal loss that served as a moment of clarity, turned against him. The fallen Jedi was redeemed, and in his redemption, he provided the key to Exar Kun's defeat. He gave the Jedi the knowledge they needed to fight back Dot as the Jedi rallied and the Republic prepared for a final, crushing strike. Exar Kun realized his grand plan was slipping away. The galaxy was not bending to his will. It was breaking around him. Facing imminent defeat at the hands of a combined Republic and Jedi fleet, he retreated to his stronghold, the massive temple he had built on the jungle moon of Yavin 4. It was here, in the heart of his power, surrounded by the artifacts of his stolen knowledge, that he would make his last, most horrifying gamble. He would rather embrace oblivion than admit defeat. He knew he could not survive the onslaught, but he refused to be defeated. A true Sith never accepts defeat, not even from death. In his final moments, surrounded by the faithful followers he had corrupted, the members of his brotherhood who still believed in his vision, Exar Kun performed a monumental and terrifying act of Sith magic. He did not ask for their sacrifice. He took it. He initiated a ritual so vast, so powerful, that it would consume the lives of every single one of his followers. It was a final, monstrous act of betrayal. They screamed as he drained them, their life force, their very souls, ripped from their bodies and funneled into him. He used their energy to perform an abomination. He severed his own spirit from his physical body. He anchored his consciousness to the stones of his temple, and he sealed it there for all of eternity. The Jedi fleet arrived to find a world of silence. The Sith were gone, not defeated in battle, but vanished. Only one body remained in the central chamber, the physically perfect, empty shell of Exar Kun, kneeling as if in meditation, a statue to his own vanity. He had not died a glorious death. He had not achieved victory. He had performed a cosmic suicide, condemning his soul to a hellish, self-made prison. He had chosen to exist as a screaming, disembodied specter, a ghost with no power to affect the living world, trapped forever in the tomb of his own ambition. Rather than simply surrender or face justice, the war ended not with a single victorious battle, but with the sudden, haunting silence that followed his ritual. The Jedi and the Republic were victorious, but their victory was hollow and stained with blood. The scars left on the galaxy were deep and lasting. The Jedi Order was decimated, its numbers few, its faith in itself shattered. The Republic was left vulnerable and distrustful, a shadow of its former self, its stability cracked and ready for the next crisis. Exar Kun had been defeated, but his legacy of chaos destruction, and moral decay lingered for thousands of years. His final act was a testament to his evil. He would rather destroy himself and everyone who believed in him than allow his enemies to triumph. And so, his story, the tragic tale of a promising Jedi, came to a chilling conclusion. Exar Kun was not a monster from a distant void. He was a product of the Jedi's complacency, a direct result of ambition turned to arrogance. His was not the cold, calculated evil of an emperor. It was the hot, burning evil of a man who believed he was above all rules, who believed his will alone could bend the very laws of the universe. Thank you for watching.